Battle control initialized.
Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Red Alert Global League Season 9 Minions Round 2. In the upper left-hand corner, playing as Russia, we have KsKNico. And in the lower right-hand corner, playing as Ukraine, we have HansNihall. Let's go to the production tab. And Nico's about half a second ahead there. He's going to drop his barracks first. We'll see if that gives him an advantage on the field. A few seconds ahead in production of his first rifleman. And on such a small map, it is absolutely integral to get your army out there or to have a backup plan, okay? I've seen a lot of players go for a War Factory first build to great success. HansNihall only putting a few riflemen on the field. He might be going War Factory first after all. Hans experiencing a bit of lag, both players. HansNihall sitting on his refinery. Sitting on that refinery for a solid 6 seconds, about. So you can see KsKNico has tremendous field presence at this point. He's, well, what's he up to now? He's up to 16 riflemen on the field to Hans's 7. And they're not going to change servers. This is the one they uploaded. Both players going double ref. And I like the placement of Nico's refineries a little bit more. He's building backwards and he's spreading out. Or Nico, right? I said Nico. Okay, so this is an obstacle. Both players have it. But if you start mining there, I just don't like that. 27 seconds until Nico's War Factory comes out. 34 seconds until HansNihall's War Factory comes out. Both players with a flame tower in their pocket in this Soviet versus Soviet match. Nico, the only player so far to capture an oil derrick, reflects in his income 4,400 to 3,150. And Nico's got the cash to spare and the action per minute advantage at 22.9 to HansNihall's 17.5. HansNihall sitting on his War Factory for another couple of seconds. Those seconds are really starting to add up at 2 minutes and 45. Unable to move in. Tremendous field presence in the early game from KsKNico. Nico's got rocket troopers on the field now. And a flak truck on the way to poke out those troops. HansNihall's engineer is taking the long way around. Going to go for a base capture, I bet. HansNihall captures a hospital. And the healing efficiency from the hospital just isn't the same as from a medic. And the meeting of the engineers. Nico, 6 seconds till he drops his service depot. Let's take a look at things from Nico's perspective. He's got good vision on the field. What about HansNihall? HansNihall, not so much. You can see how much more vision Nico has. Both players on 5 harvesters, with KsKNico controlling the only oil derrick remaining on the field. 26 seconds until Hans gets out with his first expansion MCV. And here comes Nico's NG. And there's Hans's NG just hanging out in the back, not being too aggressive. Armored personnel carrier from HansNihall, and 32 seconds until his MCV comes out. There's Nico's MCV. Looks like he's going to go for his primary expansion, scouting it out with a rifleman. That's getting your money's worth. HansNihall transitioning to flame troopers. We might see a flamer drop. And that engineer just working the bottom of the map. There's first expansion out from Nico. Pop and drop. On his way to the other side. Might go for his secondary natural. And a sizable infantry force from Nico is making its way towards Hans' base. HansNihall out with his first expansion MCV, moving south towards who knows where. Oh, okay. He's going for his natural as well. Nico's already got that scouted out. And full load of something. I didn't quite see what he put in there, but I bet it's flame troopers. Good Tesla coil deployment from Hans. Zaps out that. Oh, did he see that? No. Nico is totally unaware of this drop that's coming in. Oh, and he gives it away. Might have been a better idea just to keep going, but Nico's going to see that APC just out there by itself. That can only mean one thing. Rotates his army in preparation for some kind of drop. Nico about to come out with his second eco expansion. A one harvester transfer from each. And that one's definitely got flame troopers in it. We might see a dual flamer drop. If they come in from two different vectors, that could work. Nico. Oh, Hans moving out his army. Nico attacking through the ore fields directly into a flame tower. He's going to have to hit that flame tower quick. Dual flamers are going to make mincemeat out of this army, but Hans loses a harvester. Brings him down to 5 harvesters to Nico's 7. Nico now out of position. Maybe he's forgotten about that flamer drop that's coming in. Nico on his second expansion, 10,000 income to 8,000. Oh, Nico's Engie gets struck down. Here comes that drop. We'll see what he does with it. And passes on the main base, maybe going for an expansion. Drop him right now, buddy. Oh, don't do that. Oh, here we go. HansNihall destroys Nico's first eco expansion base. But when it comes to field presence, wow. Nico, $23,000, $26,000 now worth of army on the field, and HansNihall sitting at $16,000. 9,000 income for Nico. Hans just took a big bite out of his Nico's eco. Hans still with one drop remaining. Maybe going for Nico's second expansion. And Nico has already got aircraft on the field. Great line of sight. Hans is going to go for another drop. Totally uncontested. Hans is really hitting Nico where it hurts. He knows he has a disadvantage. And playing from a disadvantage, you really need to play asymmetrically. Gets away with 2 of the flamers intact. And, oh boy. Little tit for tat. HansNihall goes low power on deployment of that Tesla coil. Sells it. And he's trying to get away with that MCV, but working himself into a corner, being chased by tanks. I don't think he's going to get out of this one. Absolutely not. He's completely cornered, and he's going to lose that MCV. Nico now behind in income. 56,000 to 6,400. on 7 harvesters and being limited in the fields that he can mine. Nico coming in towards Hans's first expansion. Oh, and good use of the Air Force there. Only manages to take out 1 power plant. Blocks off the War Factory. That's really good. Is he going to block anything? He's blocking a heavy tank from coming out. V2 finding a good hit. And Hans is going to lose this position very quickly. Moves out his main moves out his second expansion MCV. And we're looking at the beginning of the end, folks. We got Nico with nearly triple the army value and moving in on Hans's main base. Absolutely decimating his army in that battle. And Hans just has no answer for this. An idle army from Hans up in the upper right-hand corner there. Oh, Nico loses an MCV. Hans trading well despite advancing into a much larger force, leading with the tank and allowing the infantry to do their job. And HansNihall calling a good game at 11 minutes and 38 seconds. 299 to 196. Let's go to the eco graph. Nico, with an advantage from the very start, maintains that advantage throughout the rest of the game. And that's all about the oil derricks. I know I say this a lot, but oil derricks are very important in the beginning of the game. Provides additional funds. And it just keeps cranking out $100 bills. So, let's go to the army tab. Nico, again, with an advantage from the early game. Hans hesitated, to be honest. He might have been experiencing some lag, but he sat on a few key structures for a combined total of probably 10 seconds, which really adds up quickly. HansNihall able to pop and drop expansions that were taken out, but being tenacious and just continuing to expand, and get his eco expansions all over the map. Not really spending any money at all on defensive structures. Alright. I think the flame towers are like 600 apiece or something like that. So putting all that money into scaling up his economy. And there you go. Game number 1 going to KsKNico on to game number 2.
Battle control terminated. Battle control initialized.
Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Red Alert Global League Season 9 Minions Round 2. We've got Nico up in the upper left-hand corner playing as Britain, and HansNihall now as Russia in the lower right-hand corner. Let's go to the production tab. Both players almost dead even this game. I bet they fixed the lag from last game, switching servers or something. Nico with units on the field first. And HansNihall coming out with a Grenadier rush. How many Grens? 4, 5. He's going to stop at 5. Nico with good eyes on the field. Sees the Grens. And Hans reverses course. Neither player with an engineer on the field yet. And it looks like Hans is going to cut a path right through that infantry. Really unfortunate. That's a big setback early in the game to lose all those Grenadiers. Looks like one of them got through, though. Honestly, bad positioning to stand out in front of the barracks. It's like, hello, here I am. I have grenades. Alright, we got the first engineer on the field from KsKNico. Going up north to the northern oil derrick. 2 oil derricks on this map, and a very interesting map on tiered straits. Tiered Strait, whatever it is. The last map was Agita. And I actually like Tiered Strait a lot because if you're aggressive, you win. And I tend to like maps like that because, you know, if you fall back and you go for those gems without taking a field position first, it's just all over. So Nico out with, well, he's ahead in, oh, okay. So HansNihall went War Factory first on this one. KsKNico, with the first oil derrick captured of the game, reflected that in his income. Both players on 2 harvesters and 1 derrick. HansNihall without an army on the field. I don't know what he's planning. He's just ecoing up. He's coming out with an APC, and he is strapped for cash. Usually you would want to cancel production of that flame tower that he's building. Just get a little bit more cash and prevent stalling, but I think he's stalling out. There's Nico's War Factory. HansNihall is going to be the first one to drop a service depot, but he is still cash stalling, not canceling his flame tower, anticipating an early game attack from KsKNico. A taxi cab ranger picks up an engineer on his way to the lower oil derrick. HansNihall out with an APC. Fills it up with riflemen. Only 4 riflemen in that APC. Each player on 4 harvesters, and Nico about to make that 2 derricks to his name, the only 2 derricks on the field. HansNihall cash starved despite having a greater income. Nico at 27.1 actions per minute and HansNihall at 34. Just goes to show that it's not about the APMs. I believe there's an engineer in there as well. Yep. Going for a recap. $4,100 army value to $3,850 army value. Each player on 5 harvesters, 1 oil derrick. Nico with an income advantage. Sizable force brewing from both players. HansNihall going low power for just a second there. Allies versus Soviets. Britain versus Russia. And an APC from HansNihall filled with 4 riflemen and 1 engineer. That's an interesting play. And you see this, HansNihall took the rearward expansion. I don't think that's a good omen for the rest of the game, to be honest. You can see how much more field control Nico has just from that 1 expansion. So really important on this map that you move forward before you move backwards. Nico still with an income advantage despite being behind on harvesters. He's mining from a full field now. Still yet to see an eco transfer from either player. Oh, okay. So HansNihall eco transferring and about to capture that derrick too. HansNihall hunting the field with that APC. And moving out with a large force forward with his main MCV. Doesn't have build radius on his main base anymore. We'll see how he makes that work. Nico now out with his second economic expansion, advancing his MCV to within range of HansNihall's base. He's definitely got build radius right up in there. So we might see a turret deny that ore patch. And a recap. And there's the turret. Firing on the ore miners, denying HansNihall that ore patch. Might even take out. Oh. Might even take out that harvester. HansNihall advancing despite line of sight disadvantage. He's got his own static defenses. HansNihall sitting on that advanced power plant. Or a standard power plant, it would be. He's not on radar tech yet. Poking away, this is a great example. So those medics are able to just negate the fire from the flak trucks. They have so much healing power that the flak trucks are not able to kill any infantry so long as the medics are present. And a sizable force from Nico. No baloney this time. He's going to secure that derrick. HansNihall, with a sizable force, doesn't advance on Nico's main base. He knows that there's another force waiting in the wings. Comes out with 3 V2 rocket launchers. We'll see if they can find good hits, but he's aiming for those pillboxes. Might be a better idea to aim for center of mass of the infantry, but the infantry gets the Q and falls back, losing only a few of them. And another recap on the northern side. Sees that APC coming in and pulls his engineer back into the taxi cab. Nico attacking through Hans's ore mine. He's going to find a heavily damaged harvester there. HansNihall ahead, 9 harvesters to 7, but not for long. And Nico pulling his forces back. A better crescent formation than Hans, but Hans driving his tanks into the main army force of Nico, trading very well. Completely destroys Nico's forces there. And Hans, now on the offensive defense. But he has got to find the center of mass of this infantry force with those V2s. He can really trade well there if he does. $25,000 army value to $16,000. Nico in the lead by about 10,000 on the field. And Nico's got helicopters. He's got great field presence. Let's take a look at things from his point of view. Nico with solid control of the northern field of the map. Arguably could go for even more economic expansion. He's at 9,500 income and floating 15k, so he's balancing it well, but there's always room for more, isn't there? Hans with an army that is at line of sight disadvantage thanks to this helicopter. Nico with the artillery to counter. Longer range than the V2s. He's got to find the center of mass. And you can see just how much line of sight this helicopter has. All the way out to here. That's from that helicopter. So that combined with the artillery is an absolutely devastating combination. HansNihall trying to advance. His force is being fired upon at long range from the artillery, pushes in and meets a lot of rocket troopers. And the V2s missing the mark on the center of mass of the infantry. Moving in melee. Being taken out. One at a time by those medium tanks. One of them gets away. But Hans is going to lose this MCV. It's an overwhelming amount of firepower from Nico. Really, first mistake, last mistake. I wish Hans would have just force fired into where he thought the center of mass of that infantry was. He would have traded very well. Let's take a look here. HansNihall down to 7,300 army value. To KsKNico's 24,000. Sells off the MCV. Loses the radar dome. And a decent crash from the Yak. Tanya is on the dance floor. Oh, and a V2 takes out Nico's expansion MCV. Nico no longer has build radius there. If Hans can answer this army on the left. HansNihall ahead. 16,000 income to KsKNico's 11,000. Wow, and a melee artillery. We're hearing Tanya's taunts, but we don't see her yet. There she is. No troops on that side for Tanya to chew up. Nico is going to have to take out those defenses first. HansNihall with a beautiful concave, trading well, answering the army on the left and staying in the game for just a minute longer. But a massive force moves in from Nico from the north side. Tanya in tow. Somewhere. She should be somewhere. Nico still. Oh, Hans calling a good game at 14-24. I just want to check out. Tanya was killed at some point, so I think she charged in with the rest of the army and got zapped by a Tesla coil. But anyway, let's go to the Eco tab. Nico slightly behind until minute 2 when he captures both oil derricks, and Eco's up. Both players relatively even, trading back and forth until about minute 7. At which point I think Nico made his first attack into Hans's ore field and managed to deny him this ore pouch with some turrets, and then forcing Hans to transfer over here to the leftmost ore patch, and then attacking through the ore patch there. Let's go to the army graph. Nico with an advantage from the very beginning. You can see this little blip here. That was Hans's Grenadiers, which just picked an unfortunate path. You know, it is such a gamble to do a Grenadier rush against such experienced players, because they are absolutely waiting for something like that. And unfortunately, Hans just not able to find a good attack vector, running his Grenadiers straight into the conga line that was headed over to the northern oil derrick. And yeah, so both games going to KsKNico Red Alert Global League Season 9 Minions Round 2. 762 to 538. Minions Round 2.
Battle control terminated.